Hi, everyone. Welcome to Snapshots, a physical education standards implementation video series created through a partnership with the Minnesota Department of Education, MnShape, and MnDape. I'm Mary Thyssen-Milder, and I serve as the State Physical Education Specialist at the Minnesota Department of Education. The 2018 Minnesota Academic Standards in Physical Education were developed by physical educators from across the state. The Minnesota Department of Education facilitated that process and then formed a physical education standards leadership team made up of the co-chairs of the MDE Physical Education Standards Development Team, executive board members of the Minnesota Society of Health and Physical Education, or MnShape, leaders in adaptive physical education representing MnDape, and representatives of higher education. The MDE Physical Education Standards Leadership Team designed a 3-year implementation assistance plan to support Minnesota physical educators as they plan for implementation of the standards in the 2021 to 22 school year. The focus for the first year was to get to know the standards by breaking them down by individual standard and benchmark, reviewing the academic language and learning progressions within them, and then deconstructing and bundling benchmarks. In 2019, we were in the middle of the second year of professional development when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and that put a dramatic pause on the training plan. We are now 22 months later. The COVID-19 pandemic has delayed the implementation of the 2018 academic standards of physical education until the 2023 to 24 school year. Our plan is to continue with the Year 2 Professional Development Series. However, it is clear to us that the pandemic has impacted our teaching dramatically and that refreshers in the foundational topics we covered in Year 1 may be needed. As a result, this video series was created to provide a short snapshot of them. It's the intention of each video to be a short, concise review and be available for a teacher online at any time that's convenient on either the MDE or MnShape websites. A teacher may watch them in order or go directly to a desired topic. They can be viewed individually or in teacher teams. This slide identifies the videos available. A short introduction to the series provides an overview. Then we begin with personalizing the standards, which is broken down into 3 short videos that review the importance of standards, introduces the new Minnesota physical education standards, and breaks the standards down one by one. Videos on academic language, learning progressions, deconstructing benchmarks, and bundling benchmarks are also available. The focus of this video is deconstructing benchmarks in the 2018 Minnesota Academic Standards in Physical Education. The objectives for this presentation include exploring what it means to deconstruct a benchmark, identifying the process of deconstruction, and providing examples of deconstructing the 2018 Minnesota Academic Standards in Physical Education. The process of deconstructing helps teachers identify meaning in benchmarks. Benchmarks identify specific knowledge or skills that a student must master to complete part of an academic standard by the end of a grade level or grade band. Once a teacher has identified the academic language and learning progressions within and among them, the next step is to dig into the statements themselves and make meaning of them. In the next slides, we'll explore analyzing benchmarks in order to make sure we understand what each means. Deconstructing, which may also be referred to as unpacking, is the first step in that process. Deconstruction is done to help make sense of the benchmark. It's the process of identifying the defining parts of the statement that will help teachers understand the key components of the benchmark. It is important to understand both the different parts and the entire statement of learning. It's important here to remind you that benchmarks are not the same as lesson or unit objectives. Rather, they indicate what students must know and be able to do by the end of a grade level or grade band. Developing a shared understanding is a critical outcome of deconstructing benchmarks. Consensus about the intent of the benchmark is the goal. For example, We must all agree to the intent of the benchmark. Here is an example of why it's important. High school benchmark 9.1.3.1 says that a student will demonstrate competency in a specialized skills in each of the health-related fitness components: muscular strength, muscular endurance, flexibility, cardiorespiratory fitness. Some teachers would think that this is a physical fitness benchmark, but it's not. It's about applying health-related fitness components to varying activities. It's also important to read the entire benchmark. For example, 7th grade benchmark 7.1.3.4 states that a student will dribble with the preferred or non-preferred hand using change of speed and direction in a variety of invasion game practice tasks. There are 3 parts to this benchmark. It's not just about dribbling with the preferred or non-preferred hand. It has to include a change of speed and direction and occur in a variety of invasion game practice tasks. There's more than one way to deconstruct a benchmark. Pick an approach that works for your content area and team. Here are 2 options for deconstructing a benchmark. Option 1, step 1 is to look for the content or the what, the verb, students will be doing and learning. Step 2 is to look for anything that might indicate the level of desired learning, which is the criteria. Step 3 is to look for anything that might help you determine the context in which the content and criteria must occur. This is called the condition. A note here is that the condition may always not be present in a benchmark. Option 2 for deconstructing is step 1, identify the action required of the learner, and step 2, identify the content in the standard. There may be other ways to deconstruct. Some might be based on content area research and resources. For physical education, we are going to use option 1. The following slides provide examples of the deconstructing process. In 4th grade, a benchmark 4.1.3.3, a student will throw overhand with accuracy to a moving target. The content is to throw overhand. The criteria is with accuracy, and the condition is to a moving target. With each benchmark, it's important to visualize what we're asking our students to do. Think developmentally appropriate. For example, for the criteria of throwing with accuracy, as a teacher, you would think about what learning activities can be done to progressively reach this criteria of throwing with accuracy. It could be starting with a learning activity with a big target, like a hula hoop, and then make the target smaller and smaller until it is a hand. In the 8th grade benchmark 8.1.1.1, students will demonstrate a movement sequence using correct rhythm and timing as an individual or in a group. The content is movement sequence. The criteria is to use correct rhythm and timing. And the condition is as an individual or in a group. In the 9th grade benchmark 9.2.1.1, a student will apply terminology associated with exercise and participation in selected individual performance activities. The content is exercise and participation terminology. The criteria is successful application, and the condition is in individual performance activities, for example, track and field, inline skating, self-defense. Here is an example of a benchmark that the condition is not specified. 6th grade benchmark 6.3.3.3. A student will describe the overload training principle and how it affects fitness. The content is to describe both the overload principle and the effect on fitness. The criteria would be the correct description of principle and effect of principle on fitness. There is no condition identified in the benchmark. Now it's your turn to try in this high school benchmark 9.4.4.1. A student will apply best practices for safe participation in physical activity, exercise, or dance. What is the content, the criteria, and the condition? The content is to apply safe movement best practices. The criteria is appropriate application, and the condition is application during physical activities, exercise, or dance. One more practice for this high school benchmark 9.5.1.1. A student will analyze the health benefits of a self-selected physical activity. What is the content, the criteria, and the condition? The content is to analyze health benefits of self-selected physical activity. The criteria is to provide a correct analysis, and the condition is not identified in the benchmark. For this benchmark, the analysis will be specific to the activity the student selects. There are many resources available for deconstructing benchmarks. I want to remind you about a resource for overall standard development, the MDE Standards Portal. This portal was created by members of the MDE Academic Standards team to assist schools as they go through this complicated process of building standards-based systems. More information about deconstruction can be found there. This completes our exploration of deconstructing benchmarks in the 2018 Physical Education Standards as part of the SNAPSHOTS Physical Education Standards Implementation video series. I remind you that the video series covers topics covered in the first year of standard implementation training sponsored by MDE, MnShape, and MnDAPE. Special thanks to the members of the MDE Physical Education Leadership Team on the development of the content and for their continued guidance in supporting quality physical education in Minnesota. For more information on professional development opportunities, stay tuned to the MDE Physical Education webpage or the MnShape website.